So, okay. Mistunan Misamokokitok Chipitaki. My name is Old Stone Woman. My Blackfoot name is Old Stone Woman. My grandfather gave it to me. Our Blackfoot territory goes way down into by Yellowstone River and that, and it comes from when the dog days, when we used to travel in travas, and there's a whole story to Old Stone Woman. And so I'm a Piikani Blackfoot woman. All my descendants come from Piikani, and I'm about 6 or 7 generations from Brings Down the Sun, and he was one of the main people that came from the south, Piikani. So we have 2 Piikanis. So they're the south, and then we're the north Piikani. Going to the west, we own three mountain ranges to the west. So that goes right up to was it Cranbrook? I met up with one of the ladies from the Crow's Nest Museum, and one of the stories that I'd like to tell is that when she approached me, and we had a meeting on having input and education within the Crow's Nest Museum to educate the people of whose territory that they're living on as of now. And one of the outcomes that came from that meeting were that we start off with a map, and we do a mapping in the Crow's Nest Museum. And within that meeting, I came home and I told my mother, my late mother, she just passed away about 3 years ago. So this is how long we've been trying to advocate. And I did leave it with our own consultation, our own beginning consultation, but it never went anywhere. So one of the things that came out of that meeting, and I invited a lot of people I invited some of the main people, our traditional knowledge keepers, to that meeting, and that worked in the different museums. One in Glenbow, but they were all from Piikani, and the Hit Smashed in Buffalo Jump, and some others that worked in the school system that teach our identity within the school system and in Piikani. So that's where we began. And then when we got the idea of saying, okay, well, let's make this map, and all the places in Crow's Nest, in the mountain ranges, or Castle Mountain, all over in that area, I came home, and my mother was one that I invited to that meeting, but she was sick. And so I told her that this was the outcome of that meeting. And she said, well, it was already done. It was already done in the 80s with a guy named Barney Reeves. And he was working with some people from the University of Lethbridge. And so they had our elders at that time, and they pointed out all the different historical places within the in the mountain areas. And today, what saddens my heart is when I go there to pray, and all you see is dust. You know, it's being plagued. Our mountains are being plagued with too many, there's no respect there anymore. I interviewed one of the elders within my education classes that I was taking, and that goes back to the signing of the Treaty of 1877. And one of the things that he said was that it was a peace treaty. but in other words, it was trickery. They used it as, they said that it was to them and us, they said it was going to be a peace treaty. So our people, that was the way it is. If you come to us with a humble heart, and that's how our elders were. They had that humble heart. And so at the time of the treaties, the signing of the treaties, our people thought, well, okay, well, we're going to allow them to come in and live with us, the non-native people. We're going to share this land and let them stay. But then it turned out that as soon as the signing of the treaty, when we all went home, when our people all left, that's when they included the without our consent, they included Morley, the Stoney people, and Tsuut'ina Nation. So, but that's all Blackfoot territory, all Calgary, going way up to by Edmonton, the Yellowstone, where all this part, it that's all our vast territory. That's where our people, we were able to take care of it, because that's where the buffalo were, and that's what we lived on. And then after the signing of the treaty, we were, at that time, it was in the fall, our clans were starting to move it to the mountains, because that was our winter camps. And then the West Mounted Police, the first West Mounted Police, that's when they came, and they told our people that if we don't move into this holding pasture, we will all go to jail. Because they did that, we came and we moved in here. After we got here, we were all along the river, along here, all going up. Our clans were all the way along the river. We all picked a section to all live. And this area, that's where I belong, is the Southern Lonesome clan. And that's all this vast area, this is where we took care of. When we got here, then that's when they came to us again. They took all our children from 4 years and up, and they took them from their homes, and they put them in the residential schools. The only reason why they did that is because we were in the way of progress. So our language, our land, were not lost. But in the residential school, that is what they tried to do. They, everybody knows, people studied it. It was to kill the Indian in the child. The beauty of being raised by your grandmother and grandfather. One of the beautiful things, that the reason why I would like to share this story, is because she used to boil the water on the stove, and then she'd sit on the floor with my mother, and she'd comb her hair, she'd wash her hair, and then she'd be combing it. And in that, while she's doing that, she's telling her stories, and she's telling her Gukuwan, that means my grandchild. Never cut your hair, and make sure that you're going to have children, you're going to have grandchildren. Make sure that they grow their hair, because that's our connection. That's our connection to Mother Earth. And when we go off into the spirit world, my mother kind of knew a little bit, because her mother went to boarding school, so she kind of knew a little bit of the English, so she kind of knew what they were saying. And she would be sitting there with my grandmother. They were at the boarding school, and she said that nun would just be walking around, and she'd be holding her braids. She'd be touching my mom's hair, and she'd be walking around looking at her. And then when they left, she told her mother, what was she saying? And she said, you have to go to school. She said, and you have to cut your hair. And my mom told her, no, my grandmother said I'm never supposed to cut my hair. And so they had to go to boarding school. They had no choice. If they didn't go, then their mother and dad would have to go to jail. And I'm pretty sure that was down in Saskatchewan. That's where the jail was at that time. So they went to boarding school. They went to residential school, whatever you guys want to call it, but that's what they did. And her older brother didn't know a word of English. So all he knew was our Blackfoot language. And he was tormented by the priests and the nuns. He was beaten. And in the schools, the men and the women couldn't couldn't have communication with one another. So she used to see her brother getting beaten up in school. And so that is what the history, and we talk about intergenerational trauma. So when they left the school, that's all they knew, that love was gone. Only until my mom had grandchildren, she learned to love. My mom raised 7 of us, and we were like, we had to go through what she went through because she experienced it. That's all she knew, was to be, and it was an arranged marriage. She had to, at age 16, and I only found out about this, and that was through one of my sisters. The priest already bought her ticket, and he was going to take off with my mom. But it was my grandparents and the guy, my dad's parents, and the old people. They were the ones that picked my mom to live with my dad, and my dad was 10 years older than my mother. But I'd just like to say this, and to let the people know that it's real of what we went through for the people that are living on our territory, because there was an Indian agent that lived here in Bigani. In each nation there was an Indian agent that came and lived here, and what he did was he leased off all the land around us, and they're all up, those leases. And for me, I got educated. I learned. I reclaimed myself, my identity within myself and my children, with the little tools that I had, but I did it. And the stories that my mother and my grandfather and them all gave me, because I listened. So that's who I am today. And then I went off to university, and I started learning about other tribes, and that the same stories that came with those other tribes, and what happened. And that's where the railroad came in, and they started bringing in people, and they also started bringing in people to try assimilate us. And they tried so hard. But one of the things is, I am really grateful for all the knowledge keepers that saved our language, our ceremonies, and our land and our stories. That it's going to live on. As long as I'm here, it's going to live on. And that was one of the things that I and Isabel talked about, is having something in the community, in the Crow's Nest Museum, so that we can do educational classes and have field trips with the different children in the school system. But I just want to cut it short, but I wanted to give you just an overview of how it impacted us. with the truth and reconciliation. You know, we need to live that up. It's good to put it on paper. It's good to put it up on the shelves. It's good to put it on the walls. But we have to walk it. And we have to mean it from the bottom of our hearts, and to let the people know that what really happened to us as a people. And we're still living here in their holding pasture. And I'm pretty sure it's called the Big Four, the big ranchers. And that's up in the Big Four. If you know the Big Four, it's up at the Calgary Stampede, and that's those ranchers. And this is what they're supposed to be their holding pasture. So today that's where we are. But realistically, the illusion is we're here, but realistically, this is our territory. Again,